Artificial intelligence promises us the world, but some say AI could be the end of the world. Do we have reason to fear? Does the Bible speak to this present-day issue? You may be surprised. Read more in our just-released book, Between Compromise and Courage. In this updated edition, we've included new chapters on AI, the rapture, the end times, and gun control. Request your copy of our latest book today at supportdf.org. That's supportdf.org. You can also find the link in the show notes. Today is Thursday, April the 25th, 2024. Greetings and welcome to the Daily Article Podcast. Today's article is written by Dr. Jim Denison and narrated by Chris Elkins of the Denison Forum. If you care about someone whose K-12 school or institution of higher learning receives any federal funding, take note. Their school may have to open girls' bathrooms, locker rooms, housing accommodations, and sports teams to boys who claim to, quote-unquote, identify as girls. Boys' facilities and activities would likewise have to be accessible to biological girls who identify as boys. This is because the Department of Education has unilaterally expanded Title IX of the Civil Rights Code, an amendment passed in 1972 that prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex by any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. This was intended to prevent such discrimination with regard to athletic participation, facilities, and scholarships. Now, however, sex has been made to include sex stereotypes, sex characteristics, pregnancy or related conditions, sexual orientation, and gender identity. The new regulations also require K-12 schools to accept a child's gender identity regardless of their biological sex and without providing notice to or seeking approval from the child's parents. As First Liberty warns, the Title IX changes directly threaten our religious liberty. The Independent Women's Forum also strongly condemns the regulation and plans to sue the Biden administration. Others will likely join them in legal opposition. We've been discussing this week our relativistic culture's rejection of objective truth and morality. An example of such confusion is the controversy over National Public Radio's new CEO and president, Catherine Marr. She suspended editor Yuri Berliner in response to his recent essay criticizing the network's progressive bias, a move that seems to reinforce his point. We should not be surprised. When she was CEO of Wikipedia, Marr claimed that, quote, there are many different truths, and stated, I'm certain that the truth exists for you and probably for the person sitting next to you, but this may not be the same truth, end quote. Jesus would disagree. In John 8, verses 31 and 32, he told his disciples, if you abide in my word, you are truly my disciples, and you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Note the definitive articles. As my wife, Janet Denison, wrote in her blog yesterday, the only way we can truly be a disciple of Christ is to abide in his word. When we allow the opinions of others to influence truth, we have ceased to abide or dwell in the truth of Christ. And Jesus said it was his truth that would set us free, end quote. Embracing Jesus' truth is the only way to be set free from the burdens of fallenness, finitude, and sin. Solomon described this burden well in Ecclesiastes 8, verses 6 through 8. Man's trouble lies heavy on him, for he does not know what is to be. For who can tell him how it will be? No man has power to retain the spirit or power over the day of death. There is no discharge from war, nor will wickedness deliver those who are given to it. End quote. The wise king would agree. The more people reject biblical truth, the more they need it. The sicker the soul, the more urgent the great physician. How can we share the truth effectively today? Paul stayed in Ephesus longer than anywhere else in his missionary journeys, reasoning daily for the gospel so effectively that in Acts 19, verses 9 and 10, we read, all the residents of Asia heard the word of the Lord, both Jews and Greeks. We have a fascinating window into a strategy through the testimony of non-Christians who heard him. 1. Show people why they need biblical truth. An Ephesian who made his living by selling idols complained in Acts 19, verse 26, that Paul has persuaded and turned away a great many people, saying that gods made with hands are not gods. The apostle exposed the obvious illogic of the man's livelihood. How can gods made with hands be true deities? The biblical worldview is quote-unquote true truth, as Francis Schaeffer noted. But to open minds to it, we often need to show them why they should consider its claims. With regard to the Title IX revisions noted earlier, for example, we can point to the tragic irony that the new version will defeat the very purpose for which the code was originally intended. Rather than ensuring that girls and boys receive equal support in our schools, it ensures that boys who identify as girls can unfairly compete against them and violate their private spaces. 2. Leverage your influence. From verse 31, we read that when Paul wanted to address the uprising provoked by the Ephesian idol maker, some of the Asiarchs, who were friends of his, sent to him and were urging him not to venture into the theater. These were wealthy and distinguished citizens whose office was greatly coveted. As their fellow Roman citizen and cultural leader, Paul obviously built personal relationships with them over his 2 years in Ephesus, illustrating James Davidson Hunter's thesis that culture changes as we achieve our highest place of influence and live there faithfully. So, to share the truth effectively, 1, show people why they need biblical truth. 2, leverage your influence. And 3, speak the truth in love. In verse 37, the town clerk quelled the riot in Ephesus by reminding the crowd that Paul and his companions, quote, are neither sacrilegious nor blasphemers of our goddess, end quote. They illustrated Peter's admonition in 1 Peter 3, verse 15, to defend our faith with gentleness and respect by manifesting the fruit of the Spirit from Galatians 5, 22 and 23 in ways that impress even their skeptics. Will you pray for God to raise up more Pauls today? Will you be an answer to your prayer? The Denison Forum team is grateful for our daily article podcast subscribers. Please share the podcast with others. And for more news discerned differently, visit denisonforum.org.